everyone. Let me begin by asking a simple question. So there is this image on the screen, and it is just someone drew a random doodle or a sketch on a computer. And if I ask you all to sort of guess at what this is, uh, some of you might guess different things, but in general, a lot of us would think of these as leafless trees in a deserted land. So these are tree branches, and there's just sort of they're put in some deserted place. But this is what the machine interprets them as, or an AI system that an interactive AI art system that I built called Tandem back in 2016. This is what that art system interpreted this drawing as. So it thinks, I'm sure none of us or not many of us would have thought of these as dogs with large ears. And but the machine thinks of them as that and has gone ahead and completed this input into that with some sort of castles and a car in the background and so on. So this is what excites me about AI art, this ability for the machine to now become part of the creative or imaginative process in creation rather than the machine just being a simple tool to sort of make your lines more smoother or things like that. So with that context, whenever I say or talk about art being created by the machines, there's always this question: Can computers be creative? And if the computers can be creative, like we saw a little bit of that flavor in the last slide, then is that the end of the road for the human artists? To unpack these questions, I'm going to talk about this topic of data and technology, which I believe is the future of art. And thanks to the Ishanya team at IIT Guwahati, my alma mater, DoD, for inviting me to sort of present my thoughts on this topic. Uh, so, the three major themes that I think AI art enables us to think about is to not look at AI replacing humans in any sense, but to look at how AI sort of augments humans to create more than what they could otherwise do. So, in that example of that doodle, can we use machines to sort of push our imagination in directions that wasn't possible before? So, in that sense, can we think of this idea of creating a continuum between humans and the machines, where humans are not just using the machines to sort of fulfill some vision of their own, but are allowing for this space between the human and the machine, where the humans are also being influenced by the machine to work towards a final output. So, in that sense, a continuum between the human and the machine forms, which is kind of a new art practice in itself. The other interesting thing with data and using that for art is that it allows us to create art from the collective understanding or representation of people. So this will, like, I'll show some examples of projects along this thought, but the idea that we can now think of some concept like what does gender look like to people, or what is their collective reality of gender, like male and female, and then we can actually go and collect that data and use that data to sort of create a visual representation, a collective visual representation of that. And the last is that we all live in a highly tech immersed world. A lot of it is AI driven. So there is no better way to comment on our existence within technology than sort of using that medium to make art with. So to begin talking about AI art not replacing but augmenting human art, there is some analogy to be drawn from the invention of photography back in the early 1800s. So this is one of the first photographs ever taken. And up till then, the artist's main responsibility was to try and capture reality as best as possible. So to draw people, to draw landscapes, etc. The artist was judged on how well they were able to capture that reality. But now cameras could do that instantly. So that actually, did that lead to the end of art? Not at all. But that actually sort of liberated the artists to create more abstract things, to create in a way that is more sort of their own personal perspective of reality. So, for example, Picasso creating this sort of very interesting representation of a weeping woman is, for example, which is nowhere like a reality representation, but just the artist's interpretation. And photography itself also became an art medium, like fine art photography. Um, and not just something as complex as photography, but even simple technical innovations have led to profound sort of impact on the arts. For example, just the invention of portable paint tubes resulted in such beautiful impressionist paintings, so that artists could go out of their studios to paint, like because they had portable paint tubes. Otherwise, they would have to sit in their studio and only paint subject matter like pots and plants, etc. But now they could travel anywhere. So that sort of indicates that technology always augments or creates new ways of expression rather than inhibit human creativity in any way. And that is what a lot of my work is about. So, one example of that is this art project called A Flying Pantograph, which is essentially a drawing drone. So, there is like this marker attached to the drone, and what it does is it replicates human motion. So if I'm moving my hand on a table, the drone is copying that motion and performing it on a far off canvas. For example, the whiteboard in this case. And in some sense, that is augmenting my physical capability. Like it's allowing me to sort of be free from the physical limitations of my body and draw wherever I want. So that is one sense of augmentation. And that isn't like, it is robotic art, but it's not particularly intelligent in any sense. So the rest of the talk is more about the works in sort of AI driven art. And just to give some context of why AI has become so popular in the last 8 to 10 years, is because of two primary reasons. One, there is tons of data available now, like the government is uh, doing surveillance everywhere, there's cameras everywhere, companies are logging all your online data. And so there is obviously incentive in trying to process and make sense of all that data. And for that reason, also, like there's been so much research in making better compute. So in early 2000, the same processing would cost you a lot, but now it's like just $1,000 and anyone can buy it off the shelf. And so it's become more accessible also. And in terms of purely art related with AI, this is one of the first triggers, at least for me personally, that sort of drew me into the space where Google released this project called Google Deep Dream in 2015. And it was the first time that I saw these very strange images, like sort of cats and dogs merging into cars and whatnot. And then I started to sort of dig deeper into how this thing works and realized how fascinating this is as a concept. Where what they did was they trained a machine learning system to understand the world around it visually. So it could detect like this is a cat, this is a dog, etc. And that is sort of the perception or classification direction where you're looking at things and understanding what it is. But then what they did very beautifully is sort of flip that on its head to say that, okay, there is random noise as input. Uh, can the machine change that random noise so that whatever it's creating starts to look a little like dog or a cat, and sort of keep moving in that direction, and then ultimately produce a cat or a dog? So that I think really nicely, at least conceptually, captures what one idea of creation or creativity can be. Like even as kids, we learn to first understand the world around us, and then once we've got that visual experience, we start creating from it. So I use this technology of Google Deep Dream to sort of create this tandem art system where you draw something like this feather pen dipped in an ink bottle, and then ask the computer to reinterpret that from its visual lens, and then it creates these very interesting outputs where it detects this as a bird and then sort of keeps augmenting that to make a bird around it. And this image we've already discussed, and this is just a screen capture of tandem in progress. So just random scribbles are interpreted as cars and birds and whatnot. Um, so really forming that continuum between the human and the machine artist. Um, so yeah, and tandem, I've had the opportunity to exhibit at a few places, and really interesting to see always people play with machine learning in such an approachable form. The other AI algorithm that I often use and a lot of AI artists use is one called generative adversarial networks. Very quickly to sort of talk about what this does is the idea is, can we have a training data set of images, let's say of cats or whatever, of hand-drawn digits, etc. And can we somehow train the machine to generate images on its own that look like that training set? So how this works is it has two parts to it. The network has two parts. One is called the generator, one is the discriminator. So the generator's task is to make a new image that looks like something from the training data set. And the discriminator's task is to detect if the image that the generator is showing, is it coming from the generator or is that image from the training set itself? So initially the generator's image is easily discriminated as a fake image, and because it's initially it's just sort of random noise, but then the generator takes that as feedback and improves its internal mechanism of generation to sort of get better. And the discriminator is also simultaneously training to get better and better. And at some point, the discriminator is not able to recognize if the image being shown to it is coming from the training set or the generator. And at that point, the generator is producing images that are very much like the training set, such that the discriminator is failing. So it's a very simple like battle of two networks, and that ultimately produces images like this. Like all these faces are, and it's are fake, and it was already done in 2017, and both the resolution and the fidelity and sort of the realness of these images has vastly improved already. Um, so I am not particularly interested in sort of creating realistic images. I'm more interested in the art aspect of it. So I use GANs in various ways to sort of generate different kinds of imagery. One of the first pieces that I did with GANs was this project called the Anatomy Lesson of Dr. Algorithm, which is a set of 20 prints. It was more of a conceptual work where I was drawing inspiration from this painting by Rembrandt called The Anatomy Lesson of Dr. Tull, which was done at a time where people were having this troubled fascination with medical science in 1600s when surgery was starting to happen for the first time, and they were wondering like, should humans be allowed to cut open other humans? How much of human should one human be allowed to look into, and sort of things of that nature. And I feel there is a strong parallel in terms of AI today, where people are debating things like, should machines be allowed to sort of uh, learn about humans, and how much should they learn about humans, etc. So What I did was take the machine and train it on surgical human dissections to sort of look at the real core and sort of gore of human in that sense, and bring out these images of human flesh uh, in the from the lens of AI for people to then uh, sort of wonder like to what extent should we push this AI forward. Um, so yeah, that was more of a provocation piece in that sense. But this slide, I think, captures what I feel as an analogy of traditional art to sort of this new AI way of making art, where traditionally artists would sort of make their paints and sort of mold, like make their clays and so on. And even like pixels and stuff, they would manipulate those as the raw materials. Whereas today, the raw material is data. And you manipulate data to sort of create art, and you manipulate it through tools like your paintbrush, etc. earlier, and today you manipulate this raw material of data through AI algorithms. So this, I think, holds as an analogy between traditional and AI art. And interestingly, like with traditional art, once you've created sort of paint, you could probably use that in various ways. But with AI art, oftentimes you're creating a new material for each artwork, like you're collecting a new data set, or creating a new data set, etc. And one project that really sort of shows an example of this analogy is this work called Strange Genders, which I did with this other collective of artists called 64 bar 1 over last year, over sort of the lockdown period, etc. Is the idea that I was representing or talking about earlier of how we can use AI art as a means to show collective reality of a certain topic. So what we did was collected this data set of gender representation of how people in India represent gender. So we began by physically collecting drawings just before the lockdowns in March. We were going to people and asking them to draw their idea of a standing male and a standing female form. Um, and these are some of the drawings that we collected. And then the second phase of the data collection was done online through Amazon Mechanical Turk, where we created this simple sort of Amazon Mechanical Turk task where people had to draw a standing male and a female form, and they were given certain money for doing that. So we collected about 2,500 to 2,700 images of these two kinds, and then trained the GAN algorithm to generate new stick figures or line figures of this gender, of these genders. Uh, so what we also did was use the initial data set that we collected to train a classification network to take some input image and classify it as either female or male with a certain percentage confidence, like 60% female or 80% female, etc. So finally, what the whole process of the artwork is looking like is we generated these GAN outputs from the data set that we collected. We passed these AI generated outputs through this classification network to get these kind of figures that you see at the bottom, like 100% female, 80% female, and so on. And then we used these to create this large circular form where the central figure is 100% female, and as it goes outwards in radius, it moves to 0% female at the outermost radius. So uh, this gender sort of AI generated gender representation drawn from what people of India represent gender like as an artwork. I think this is interesting to think of from this concept of using AI to sort of create visuals that are about a collective reality. Uh, and also being like an Indian artist and working with AI, like mostly if you see AI art or if you Google AI art, like you come across these very European American sort of old masters kind of art works, sort of AI art derived from those kinds of works. And that really made me start feeling like, is this going to be sort of the visual representation? What about like the rich Indian art forms that we have? So I started working with mask cultures of India, and I started generating these kind of outputs. And masks also, I think, are very interesting conceptually because uh, like masks were used to sort of get into different identities and escape your real identity. And even with AI today and social media and so on, you're always sort of using them as ways to escape your true reality and sort of go into these digital avatars and digital realities of yours. So there is that sort of connect in terms of traditional masks and modern masks. So I created different artworks using masks. One was the sort of 2D works that you saw earlier, but also this interactive work where your face is transformed into this face painting ritual of southern Kerala dance forms, Thayyam and Kathakali, in real time. And one of the one of the ways of also representing this is to show it as sort of an audience being transformed into these two dance forms, Thayyam and Kathakali, simultaneously. So you you realize that you are the art, like in this interactive world. Without you, there is no art. And you realize that you are both sort of a male form and a female form simultaneously. So you sort of start associating yourself with multiple identities. And what is also another reason for having this sort of showing the Thayyam and Kathakali side by side is traditionally Thayyam is a dance form of sort of the lower caste people, and Kathakali was a dance form where only the higher caste people were allowed to see, and it was performed in religious places and so on. And now with the use of AI or technology, you are breaking those boundaries apart, and everyone is sort of everything. Everyone can be both these forms simultaneously almost. So that is also a comment on using technology in a positive way of breaking sort of boundaries of identity. Um, and yeah, last piece of the talk is about tech art being a commentary on our existence with it. So for that, like one work that I did is called Authorize, which is essentially a writing machine. So someone walks up to this and starts writing something, like this person wrote human is, but then all of a sudden the machine starts taking control of the human hand. So now the person is just holding the pen and the machine is moving their hand to write something based on a magnetic system under the table. So what happens is essentially like this idea that when you are interacting with technology today, especially with AI built into almost all technologies, uh, can uh, you you sort of lose agency or control at some point of time, and the AI is sort of manipulating your decisions and activities, and you sometimes don't realize that. So with Authorize, you make that very sort of extreme by taking physical control of the person to try and get people to think more deeply about what their relation with technology and interacting with technology is. And this is like just to give a sense of what the back end of Authorize is. So someone starts writing something, there is a system to recognize what they're writing, and that becomes the starting text for an AI text generating system called LSTM. And that AI text output is then like that AI text output is generated by a model trained on philosophy books that I got from the Gutenberg project. And that AI generated text is converted to handwriting again on the using the LSTM algorithm, using a pre-trained model of human handwriting, and that is used to move this magnet to write essentially through the human hand outputs like this. And AI art is being recognized as a new genre of art internationally. There have been auctions done both by Sotheby's and Christie's on it. And the last bit is sort of talking about NFTs, which is the idea of putting art on blockchain and making digital art tamper proof and its history tracked sort of in terms of ownership and ensuring secondary sales are also ensured, because now the transaction from one person to other is transparent. And one of the platforms that I work with is called Super Rare, where I put up these NFT artworks. Yeah, and there are other platforms for that also, but it does come with an ecological cost. So there is currently a lot of debate in terms of is NFTs sustainable, and there is sort of Ethereum 2.0 that's coming in, which is supposed to be much more sustainable, and there are already some alternate blockchains that have lesser sort of energy requirements. So there is all kinds of things happening in that space. It's very early days, so lots of activity. Feel free to sort of check that out also. And lastly, I'll leave with this this question of, is the computer originally, does it create original art? And so in some sense, the humans also just create something that they've been taught to, or they've looked at, or through their experience. And if the machine is given enough experience, then maybe what it creates is also sort of uh, similar to how humans create. I don't know. I'm not commenting on are computers original artists or not, but just sort of food for thought. Thank you.